Here, we'll just wait for a few more people to get in. When did you get back from vacation? If you can even call it that.
I think it was it last week, the week before, I guess we went. So we came back on a weekend, but it was just before the cold weather came. It was like 75 degrees and sunny and dry, and the beach was extra wide and calm, and saw dolphins swimming around and stuff. And I thought, yeah, this is that's my job right here.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I love
But,
that. Yeah, it was funny.
cool.
A couple weeks ago, it was about 85 out one night when I was leaving my high school reunion at about 11 o'clock at night. And you just know that that's the night where weather's turning and it is going to be cold.
Yeah.
And it was downhill from there, right?
Yeah.
Not because of the high school reunion, but downhill because of but that's another story.
Time of the year. Yeah. Well,
So
like alcohol was involved.
I wanted to first welcome to one of our episodes of Lunch with Lumbermen with Matt Layman from.
I like that.
Yeah, well,
the market's having an episode right now.
That's right. It is having an episode. So, first thing I want to talk about was how did your hot wash go? Mike was on it, said that your son freaking knocked it out of the park. It was great.
It was incredible. It was really very good. We learned a lot of stuff, and we had 50 attendees and about 6 panelists, a couple of moderators, and it was cool. We had a good mix of mills, the treaters, the wholesale brokers, or not brokers, but trust manufacturers, wood preservers. Just a nice mix of everybody, contractor yards, and they all had the same questions. We came up with a one solution, a one answer to what was the greatest cause of what happened last year, and it was supply chain disruption was it. But I learned a lot. It's good to hear that many people together talking about cross sections of the market from their perspective, from a builder to a mill, on the same phone conversation was quite interesting.
So what are you gonna follow up with on that after the hot wash? What's your next?
What we got to do is what we realized is I think people went expecting they were going to get here's the answer. The answer is you should build an extra shed, buy an extra forklift, hire 2 more people, prepare to store lumber starting January the 3rd, and get rid of it May the 17th. I think that's what some people expected, but what it did was it walks you through a process of what happened last year, how did it happen? I mean, why did it happen? And when it happened, what did we do about it? Did we do the right things or the wrong things, or what could we? And more importantly, what will we do differently in a different situation or another disruption? And the problem is there's not a single answer for everybody, because depending on what your inventory was, when it started, if you're in a mindset of still trying to shift gears from getting rid of everything to piling it back in, it was a whiplash kind of thing. But what the hot wash does is it leads you to a place to say to yourself, next time I will fill in the blank. And for me, my answer for the industry is the question, next time I will practice restraint. And we see it here just the last couple of days of a British Columbian news release that has nothing but just some big numbers that are supposed to be scary and aggravate people. But yeah, it is aggravating the forest industry, but there's still no details. We have no idea if it's going to even impact the forest industry or not. And futures is up $60 in 2 days.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's always interesting how that stuff gets floated out. And I always believe that what comes out is always different than what occurs.
It's always worse too. I mean, it's not whether or not worse, big or bad or good, but it's always the biggest firecracker goes off first, and then the rest behind it smoke.
Before we get to that, so you raised a bunch of money and donated it to a pretty good cause. What was the final tally? How did that look?
We were a little over $8,000, and that was pretty cool, because the Marine Raider unit, which is like the SEAL teams of the Navy that are in the Marines, the same kind of. I'd never heard of them before, but my son told us a good story about one of the guys that was killed over there. But the thing he liked about it, he said, is the money goes to the families of the people, of the kids men and women who's lost their lives. And
Well, that's a great job, Matt. I mean, I know a lot of people really love being on the call. They learn a lot of information. We'll keep that up. So going back to the restraint thing that was in your market conditions and strategies. A couple people signing on. Saw Brad signing on from Utah, Chris from Hong Kong. Again, good to see both of you on here. Anybody, anytime can ask Matt and I any questions. Yeah, I think that during volatile times. In markets like this, and you're going to have news stories like this float out all the time, right? And
yeah, and our
I don't.
industry has gotten so. I think that collectively we take advantage of it. I don't think it's just not the mills. It's like everybody's looking for a reason to either buy a bunch of lumber or dump a bunch of lumber, and the rest of it's just like a roller coaster. If you look at like like a graph, we showed a graph, and I think it may show when we do put the images up. But if you look and see all the big stuff that happened last year, if you took out that big hump of ridiculous $1,000 up and $1,000 down in like 4 months, if you just whack that off, the market's just straight.
Yeah,
It's just, I mean, we ended up right where we began almost.
no, it's about information. Jory sent something out today. We were all looking at it, and then a couple of my buddies sent me it over. I noticed talking about just trying to get information. Alphabet, part of Google, gave the CME $1 billion today. Did you see that story up?
What do they want?
We're trying to figure out what it is, but I mean, I think part of it is an information play, right? I mean, CME's got a lot of information. Google/Alphabet is consolidating this information. So
Here's something to think about.
Yeah.
What if they could create something in the marketplace that was like Google Maps?
Well,
if I turn off my road into somebody's driveway, Siri or the guy on the right, the thing says make a U-turn.
Yeah.
Or turn left. It's like you can't hide from it. So it's amazing how much with that kind of technology. Even if you're walking down the beach or on the mountains or something, it'll tell you how to get out of wherever you are, get someplace else. But if you had that kind of technology that you could lay over top of the markets, of trading, yeah, I don't know what you can do with it.
It's called materials exchange, Matt.
Oh, it's going to be changed to the CMX instead of the CME.
I got to call Google back after this.
Yeah.
See what's up. So look at so again, restraint. That's a great thing. I wanted to go in and talk a little bit about some market conditions, and I also read, your another dimension. We're all kind of talking about the same thing all the time. How many houses can be built versus the labor, logistics. We talk about the same things. So I think it's good to consolidate and have a conversation with groups of people like you had on Hot Wash, and I think that you got to keep pushing that forward and creating keep creating these groups to chat, because a lot of information gets lost when everybody gets in their little bubbles in these large consolidating companies that they sit at. It's good to get outside of them and see what everybody else is doing and share best practices with everybody else.
Yeah, and best practice isn't singular.
Right.
There's everybody has their own way of doing things, and I just try to guide on timing, and that's kind of it. But you got to make the decision about how much you're going to get, how much you want to have, and how long you want to hold it for, how much cash you want to lay out. There's a lot. Buying lumber there's a lot to it. It's not just as easy as making a list and dialing a number and saying bring it to me. There's a lot more involved in it. And I think the guys yesterday were expecting a single answer. I hope what they walked away with was a better understanding of how to come up with their own individual answer.
Yeah, you know what? I think what it comes down to, and I noticed this when I was at some big companies, and we always use this to make money. And I think buyers need to understand this. All buyers should know what all their optionality is. When you have more optionality, you have more power, and you have more pricing power.
The biggest thing that I think that the industry hasn't really grasped yet is the limits of the geographical limits of where species are grown, expanded by hundreds and thousands of miles over this past year. And
absolutely.
And there was no way to see it anywhere, and I don't mean to turn this into an infomercial for Materials Exchange, but I don't know where else you could have seen
But please do that.
that have. I don't know where you could have seen that happening. I mean, because not only do you know, unless I'm on some kind of private list, but you guys are good about saying we sold OSB today from New Jersey to Oklahoma, back to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And like everybody goes, what? And they start cutting in their head doing the math. Well, that's got to be the way I did it. Well, that's halfway across the country.
Yeah, I was just looking here. We have 375 trucks up today, 175 more than 2 days ago, right? Because all of a sudden now this is starting to tip, and people are saying, again, about the Googles and the Alphabets, the world and the information play. These big companies and small companies are waking up saying, I know the market's going toward this digital thing. We should probably be part of this. And they're becoming part of it. And, we did matches on. Yeah.
What you just said there was it ties in with my inventory shift theory. The market swings like a pendulum back and forth, but you can see it when you see the number of offerings that you're seeing from day to day. You can tell where the lumber's moving back in the hands of the producers as those listings are more available.
The holy grail to buying and selling lumber is knowing real time where it's at in the pipeline and how it's flowing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Once you see that, it's like it's clear as day.
That's it.
What you got to do.
And the only way you get that is having the information where it's all being bought and sold from. And those people.
Another shameless plug.
Those people that control the small amounts of information right now, there are big groups of those people around that control small parts, and they don't want to give that up. And I understand that because I've been at some of those places. But what we're trying to do is just create transparency. Let's jump into some of the 12-month forecast. Which one do you want to look at? The 2x4, Matt, because your chart on week 45 looks a little bit different than week 44. Let's bring up the week 45 chart. There you go. 12-month forecast on 2x4 composite. So
it's the same. It's just we're at a place where, and I recently changed my thoughts about the September and October when I did a percentage the way we did percentages of when highs and lows occur, and in September and October for the last 21 years, those months basically are unchanged from beginning to end. And you can see like here, this is a kind of an atypical October where prices went up. Sometimes we expected in September, but usually October's a down month. So we're a real awkward spot here. These FTPs are accurate plus or minus a week. So I would imagine that the market's beginning to soften and it's going to take a kind of a short, sharp down cut. And the thing I've been wondering actually lately is like, what is there out there? Because I'm kind of in the camp of this whole thing's just way overbought. I mean, pre-bought. It's like it's not, the warehouses are full, but I don't think there's a lot of wood sitting on people's yards. It's not sold. I think it's so far down that pipeline. It's just the thing that could tip it over is going to be something negative in housing that causes the builders to not do what they think they're going to do next year, and they think they're going to do 10% more, and so that's the way the builders have gotten themselves 90-day lumber locks is to say, all right, here's the subdivision, here's the houses, here's the layout, here's the framing packages. They already know what they're going to build, and they're not going to be allowing options and changes because the houses are going to be pre-sold. At some point, all that stuff that grocery basket full of stuff has to be taken home and put on the shelf. And it's got to be unpacked. And there's just so much stuff coming at it that not just lumber, but everything else. I think I mentioned last week, there's a road by this neighborhood the roads were clean. They were curbed and guttered. Yards didn't have any grass in them or trees in them, but there was no sign of building going on anywhere. It looked like a brand new subdivision, but it was Tyvek'd in with holes for windows and doors, and the roof was on. The place had been swept clean, and the whole subdivision was waiting on the next round of stuff that's stuck somewhere to get on the job site. That's what I think that's going to choke lumber down at some point, and I think in the very near future.
Well, let's bring up real quick the Southern Yellow Pine 2x4 Southern SYP chart and take a look at it. So kind of a interesting chart because 2x4, number 2 and better Southern Pine, and number 3 still seems pretty strong, and 2x8 does because of two. But 2x6, I've seen that start to uh, have some aggressive pricing on it, and some of the wides again, I've seen some 10-foot, 10-inch, and 12-inch. Right? Uh, is that any? What's your thought there on
There's
pine? I
a
mean,
there's a whole slew of things that are in that just that one statement about what's going on with the products. And when it comes to the South, it starts from the end and go backwards. Between now and the end of the year is the worst logging time for wide dimension lumber. So 2x10s and 2x12s typically go up, or at least they're bought speculatively, expecting shortages during the winter of the supply. Not necessarily a treater thing, but they'll buy it because of the price if it's good enough. But it's just a low supply time. And the same is true with number 3 and number 4. We talked about this before, but with optimization over the past decade and more recently in the last 5 years or so, the cull factor of anything the lower grades than number 2, or which is going to be just 3 and 4, or a shop combo, usually just 3 and 4, is down to 5% or less of the total production. So, when you imagine any business growing, think about the supply for pallets, for example. If for all the goods and services that are in demand right now, and shortages, all that crap is coming over, on going exported is going to be on a pallet. Bigger demand than ever for pallets and
sure.
lower lumber supply.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, let's just talk about that pellet thing for a second, real quick. For years, that lived in a 50-mile radius, right? Everybody sold a pellet producer can be in a backyard of a house with a saw and some hammers, or it can be a great big conglomerate nationally that has these great big plants, right? So
Yep.
for years, you had a 50-mile. Now all of a sudden, people are shipping pellets 1,000 miles, right?
Yeah,
So
just think how much air that is.
think about the opportunity that opens up. We'll just leave that at that, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, if you bought that from some broker somewhere, or through something that was, it could have been handled 4 or 5 times and you don't know it. But if you could get to the source and buy it directly, I'm not trying to kick anybody out of the cycle, but you might just get exposed to a supplier that was outside your target area that you typically bought from, and they have what you need. Is when you're looking for something, the price isn't the barrier, then that availability
look
is.
at when you're talking 40 by 42, 42 by 48, or 40 by 48, 2-way, 4-way, brand new, recycled, A, B, and C grade. I mean, you've just opened up a whole bunch of stuff. So you're not kicking anybody out of the cycle. You're getting more people in
That's true. Yeah.
from different places, right? You're what you're doing is you're creating more desire. Instead of somebody going to their same 2 people, now they can go to their 20 people or 50 people.
That's why I don't understand why a mill wouldn't want to list on the Materials Exchange, because the only people you're going to be in contact with are the people that think that you're within shipping range of them.
I think it's fear. I mean, the biggest pushback we get, Matt, from people is, I'm afraid you're going to hurt my relationships. And look, I get it, right? But we want you to have relationships and be able to trade digitally. I mean, if everybody was afraid of hurting relationships, they'd be still buying dog food at their local pet store and not going on Chewy and buying it and having it delivered to their front door.
I wrote about relationships in that same piece last night about the retention or the restraint, and that was that the digital age is not coming. The digital age is here. It's just starting to mature. There's so many other things that are going on that, I mean, outside of just buying and selling lumber, it's artificial intelligence, off-site building, more on-site stuff. It's just a whole lot of changes coming. Different. I mean, there's even a flying car that's going to be around in about 4 years.
Man, I was hoping flying cars were going to be around 20 years ago, just like I wanted a jetpack, right? But
yeah,
now we're almost there. Let's click over real quick. So pine was a cool one. That's interesting. So Canadian SPF. Let's take a look at that one. You think about the move we actually had in Canadian SPF on a CME basis over the last month and a half. We almost traded off a couple $100. on the CME rated. Yesterday, I think 2x4 traded as low as 550 mil at some places. I don't, and where's it now 600 or 650? Maybe some.
Well, there was a big spread. There was one mill that was 550, another was 610. It's been at 610 for like 13 weeks now, and just that's their number, is sticking to it. And but I don't know how. It's interesting though, when you hear a number out there and a block was sold. A block now is 5 cars. You know, and mills will sell 5 cars. Say I sold my block and now I'm going up $5 or what. I mean, that could be any retail lumber yard across the Central America that.
Well, there's pricing. There's the 3-tiered pricing at some of these mills, right? There's pricing to your A customers. There's pricing to your B customers, and then there's your C customers that they get all the residuals after the A's and B's.
Leftovers. Yeah, you hate to think that's
it's really hard. It's just hard to find a true market representation of the market. That's why you got to suck in as much information as you can. So that's interesting on the spruce chart. The U.S. species doesn't show as much. Let's look at the OSB chart. So OSB has seemed to be kind of, the thick panels are still at that 1,000-ish level everywhere and just trading there. The thinner panels, 7/16, is at the 400-ish level everywhere, but it doesn't seem to be moving that much from what I can see.
No, but it's if you look at it compared to the FTP, it's undervalued at $400, but that's because it's got a third of that weight what last year did. But
that's important. That's weighted. A lot of that's a third weighted from last year's move, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but if you just look at the black chart, the black trend line, OSB is doing exactly what it's expected to do, and it really looks like that next FTP at week number 45 represents it's placed there because of several reasons, which are holidays and end of month. But the most recent FTPs suggest that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 more weeks before it bottoms, and then starts to make a winter up move. So I would expect that we're going to see some softening of prices for at least the next couple of weeks, maybe next 4 weeks. But that will be a time to start putting some wood in for the winter.
Yeah, no, I've seen a bunch of OSB start getting listed on the bid and the ask side. So when I see that equally weighted, it's a healthy market, right? I'm starting to see a lot of that. A lot of Brazilian pine listed on here and regular Southern pine panels. So panels have seemed to kind of settle out. I saw.
Hey, tell me something. I haven't asked you this. Who's buying the Brazilian pine?
So it takes a little bit of a sell side to it because people, when they hear anything that's not North American, they're a little worried. They want to know what stamps are on it. What if it's a struck 1, what its rated is. Same people are buying that are buying the the European OSB, right? It takes a little bit of a sell. So what I want.
Who are they? Are they builders or are they dealers? I mean, who's that is the framing thing? It's the framing.
Builders, dealers, shed builders. So and it takes some education because a lot of people are calling us saying, "Can you get us some stamps on this and show us this?" It's people that are afraid to buy it because they want to know there's somebody behind it supporting it if something happens. They're like, "Hey,
is it grade stamped? Is the building inspectors?"
Yeah, it's stamped. It's all stamped. Like there's some people in Florida that were buying it because they know that it passes code, right, for the particular one that we're listing. So if they had any information on that, they can come on because there's not a lot of plywood manufacturers out there anymore. So if you're looking for some other optionality, you should be looking at Brazilian pine, but ask all the questions to make sure it fits into your.
I'm not asking because I have a vested interest. I'm asking because I don't know.
Yeah, and look at when we first listed it, I didn't know either. I had no idea, but now I'm starting to field these questions for people and coming back and having answers. And it's like anything, a digital platform can move it, but sometimes you have to verbally educate people on it, right?
But you kind of like you have it's like buying a picture out of a magazine. You have in your mind. I can remember when I was buying. Every time I would buy, I buy 10 trucks of 2x4s. I imagined that there's a yard somewhere that had all those 2x4s on there. and the forklifts are going to go pick it up and put it on the truck. And I mean, that is the whole pictured vision of what was going to happen with that wood. And something when you have a product that you don't know about, it's hard to envision having that on your yard, for example, when you don't know. Because my thought is it's going to look like cherry colored wood. It would be perfectly clean and
no, man, this stuff, yeah,
yeah.
this stuff comes out of a lot of. Well, so if you if you look at how this, I don't want to speak too out of school. In Brazil, a lot of this is plantation pine, right? And it's genetically grown, so every tree looks like the other. It's really it's good looking wood, right?
Good consistent stuff.
It's consistent. If there's a branch growing on one tree, there's probably a branch in that line of trees that looks exactly the same down the mile long line of trees. But so they take this and spin this plywood, and it looks freaking great. But my point is, everybody that buys plywood should educate themselves on it, so they have optionality so they're not just held to one or two vendors. That's all I'm saying, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So, Matt, let's go to the framing package index quick here, because that's a great one to finish up with. The thing I notice is it keeps creeping up every week since like week 34, 35, but it's still pretty low related to 2021, 22 early in the year, right? So anything.
As far as lumber goes with builders right now, it's just boring. It's not hard to get. I mean, and they've been spoiled a little bit by being able to go ahead and get creative and figure out how they could get 90-day prices by committing to the project and to be giving the numbers of the job site and all that kind of stuff, so the suppliers could even pull and tag it if they wanted to. But the risk there is just some sort of congestion time or a digestion period where all this wood that's out there gets to the job site, and everybody's going to be busy. We're going to be building a bunch of homes. It's just, I think once again, we pushed our lumber coverage further than our kick.
So we're getting up against the half hour. I did want to say one thing. Kurt, if you're watching, I still owe you a large Materials Exchange t-shirt that I promised I'd ship you 2 weeks ago, and I didn't yet, but I will do that. Also, if you want, sign up on Layman's Lumber Guide, Matt at laymansguide.com, Matt at laymansguide.com. And as always, unfortunately, he's going to make you take it free for a bit. And if you want to sign up, Materials Exchange, mxlumber.com, go and register. We'll get you on for free. And if you're not on here, you should be. If you're one of the higher ups at some of these companies and you're getting information from your middle management that you're not sure what it is, call me direct. 312-560-7984. I'll explain.
That's Jory's number, wasn't it?
It's 312-560-7984. I'll tell you unfiltered what we really do and what our vision of our company is. Here's Materials Exchange. We are going to be the digital provider to the forest products industry, buying and selling, matching, moving money, moving the goods, and creating information and digital flow of information that'll be second to none. You want to be part of that. If we don't do it, somebody else is going to. So you might as well do it with this dapper guy here. So again, mxlumber.com. And Matt, thank you so much. We'll look forward to doing this again next week. And
thanks for having me.
Get some people on. Appreciate it.
You guys have a good week.